like in Switzerland, it's like a confederation, and there's independent nations. They have a unified, centralized military, and they have a unified foreign policy, which is essential for any country or government to have.
I mean, what we're supposed to be, like what the U.S. is supposed to
what
be.
the US is supposed to be.
Yeah.
But the problem is also what Syria should be. Syria should be, Sunni area, Alawite, Druze, Kurd, under a unified, government,
Yep.
but highly localized, giving rights and autonomy to people. Because these borders in the Middle East, they're not natural. When you look at them, there's lines on the map. They cut through entire nations, and it just creates more conflict, more war. And the only way that those powers, those hegemonic powers, can stay in power is to have a very oppressive, private police intelligence apparatus to suppress any kind of dissent. And the Middle East, because of that hegemonic ideology, has become very regressive. It hasn't been able to develop technology. Their elites are completely corrupt. They're just interested in money. They have no ideology, and this is ultimately what power does. And this is what I think maybe the US is moving towards. There is an argument that they're getting rid of the bureaucracy. They're downsizing the government, but they want to solidify power in a smaller elite that has a lot more executive. These they're called tech right people that are coming into power in the US now. They're actually progressives who they saw an opportunity to get into power, but they have like this transhumanist tech agenda, and they're not so much interested but it seems like maybe that's not what is the plan for the US, which is to become this economic power which develops technologically.
Two things that you touched on, what you said about the unnatural borders in the Middle East, like that's absolutely right. Early on in the Iraq War, I was out in Western Anbar in the desert, and we had these smugglers that were crossing the borders, and we get intelligence, and we knew the rat lines that were being used, and we started to interdict them. And what we realized was, no, these people have been trading across this path for 1,000 years, and they don't even recognize that straight line border that they're crossing. So they're not smugglers, they're traders. So we had to get smart on the mindset of the locals with regard to that. We interacted with a lot of Bedouins in the
I was going to say the Bedouins in Israel.
Oh man,
lines all the time.
It's like you arrived in a time machine, because minus the odd plastic litter, like the water bottle or the odd Toyota Hilux truck, like you might as well be in the first century. Like it's the same, man.
Yeah.
The other thing is, the direction of the U.S. Scale is an issue, and we were founded as a federalist, like 50s, or well, not 50 at the time, but like we have become what is supposed to be 50 unique experiments. And those experiments function properly because failure creates misery. And when you have 50 experiments, you isolate the misery instead of federalizing it and spreading it all over the country. The issue of scale is, both in population and in economic output, each American state has a nation that is comparable in a European or Asian country. At that scale, it's, especially with regard to economic systems and experimentation, that's a better scale to mess with. So like when people are like, well, in Norway, they do this and we should do this in America. It's like, why don't you try it in Maine and see how that works at that scale?
Because like in El Salvador is having so much success with cleaning up their crime problem and also kind of fixing their economy. But they're the tiniest country in Latin America.
Let's see governors do that, right? Because each state has its own unique economic clusters and culture, and letting that experiment thrive. I believe a return to the vision of 18 enumerated powers for the federal government and a lot more autonomy at the lower scales is the best solution. but I don't know if we'll get there.